Hello everyone, and today we're going to do a power steering flush on our Nissan Frontier. Now the current fluid is kind of dark right now, but we're going to change it out to look new and bright, just like this one. So, let's get started. And for those of you wondering how often you're supposed to do a power steering flush, well, the service manual doesn't really address it as much. However, you're supposed to do it probably around 30 to 60,000 miles, depending on your conditions. You can also tell by looking at your power steering fluid, and if it's dark, that's usually an indication it needs to be changed. And also by doing this ourselves, we'll be saving about $100. And the very first thing we're going to do is go ahead and put a pan right under our truck. And I'm going to put this close to the passenger side wheel. That way I can catch any power steering fluid that could drip on the ground. Alright, so now we can go ahead and go to our power steering reservoir. Let's go ahead and take the cap off and we'll go ahead and set that aside. Now there's two ways you can empty this. You can go ahead and use a turkey baster if you like, and I've used this before. Or you can go ahead and get a pressure pump. And I'm going to go ahead and use this instead just because of convenience, and it makes it really easy to get every little bit out of this reservoir. So all I got to do is stick the tube in, make sure it's on vacuum, and then just go ahead and start pumping. And then little by little, it'll start coming through the hose, and it should start filling up that container. And almost there. Looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and take this container off. And try not to spill anything. There we go. And now we'll take our clear cup, and I'll go ahead and put it in there just for now. Alright, that was pretty simple. Now let's go ahead and reattach our container and keep pumping. And there should be only a little bit left. And yep, that looks about right. So let's go ahead and take our hose out, try not to drip it anywhere. And there we go. So now let me go ahead and bring the camera in so we can kind of show you what we're trying to do. So there's two hoses going to the reservoir. The first one's your suction hose. This goes to the power steering pump, which leads it to the rest of the system. And then we have your return hose, which is going to feed back right into your reservoir. And that's the one we're going to focus on. And as a just-in-case measure, we'll go ahead and put a towel right under the hose just to catch any power steering fluid that will leak. Now let's go ahead and unseat our power steering fluid reservoir, and all I have to do is lift straight up with a little bit of wiggle. And there we go. That was pretty easy. And I'm going to lift this up a little bit more just to completely unseat it. There we go. Give it a little turn. And now we have access to our return hose, and it makes it really easy to get rid of that hose clamp. So I'll take some needle nose pliers, go ahead and squeeze down on that hose clamp, at least try to. And there we go. And I was able to just take it a few inches downward, and that's all we have to do. And I'll go ahead and back the camera up just a little bit. And now I'll take my 13mm wrench, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this on the hose and push downward. This will help disconnect it from the reservoir because it's a little hard to get to. And a little bit more wiggling. That's almost loose. And there we go. Alright, so we got a little bit of fluid coming out of the reservoir, and I'll put a cup under there just to catch the rest. Alright. A little bit came out. And now we can grab our clear hose and our hose barb, and let's go ahead and connect it to our return hose. The whole idea is we want to extend it just long enough so we can go ahead and put all that return fluid in a bottle. And that looks like we're in good shape. And now we'll go ahead and take some of that excess clear hose, and we're going to cap off our reservoir. And all it is about 8 inches of extra hose that we just went ahead and bent upward. So now I'll go ahead and take the return line that we have and go ahead and put it in a bottle. Now I do recommend using a 1-gallon bottle, but this is all I had at the time, so it's pretty much all I'm going to use. And now let's go ahead and refill our reservoir. And the fluid we're going to be using is automatic transmission fluid. If you look in your owner's manual, it says we can use Dexron Type 6, and that's what this particular brand is. So we're going to go ahead and use that same stuff for our power steering fluid. And we're going to go ahead and top off our reservoir, at least try to, hopefully without spilling it. And that looks pretty good. And get the funnel out the way. And there we go. And we'll go ahead and place our cap right on there. And that's good and tight. And we're going to do a quick inspection right before we turn the vehicle on. Looks like our cap hose looks pretty good, nice and sturdy. Yep, that's out of the way. And our return line is nowhere near the belts. Yep, looks like everything's out of the way. I think we can go ahead and keep moving forward. Next, let's jump in the vehicle, engage our parking brake, and then work our way to the back of the vehicle and go ahead and install some wheel chucks. We're going to do some in front of the wheel and behind it as well. We pretty much want to make this job as safe as possible when lifting up the front of the vehicle. Now let's go ahead and grab our service jack and go and lift up the front of the vehicle. Now there's a point right in the center, which you can see in the diagram, and that's where we're going to be lifting from. And we don't need to lift this high, we just need enough just to get the wheels right off the ground. So it looks pretty good from here. Let's do a quick check. Let me go ahead and look under the passenger side wheel first. And a little lower. Yep, see a little bit of an air gap right there. Work away to the other side. Yep, see an air gap as well. This will work. Now for this part, you definitely want to be very attentive. Let's go ahead and get in the vehicle, and you're going to go ahead and start it up just for a few seconds. Since we only have a small jug, we do not want to keep this on long, because if not, it will overflow. So we're going to just do it just for a few seconds. And as you can see, it's got a lot of air coming out of it. And then after just a few seconds, we just went ahead and turned it off. We don't want it overflowing or shooting power steering fluid anywhere. And then we'll go ahead and take out our hose. And we'll just go ahead and gently put it in the cup. Again, I'm trying to keep this as clean as possible. And nah, that doesn't feel right. Let's go ahead and place it right there. There we go. Now all I'm doing is just emptying the jug. And then we're going to go ahead and repeat this same process. So everything looks pretty good. And now let's go ahead and grab our funnel and go ahead and refill the power steering reservoir again. And pretty much we're going to do the same thing over and over just until this is completely flushed out. Now I'm putting a little excess power steering fluid in. It doesn't have to be at the max line. It could be a little bit more. It's not going to hurt it. And that looks pretty good. Let's put our cap back on. Okay, it looks pretty good. Now let's work our way back in the vehicle and going to repeat the exact same thing at least 2 more times. But this time we're going to turn the steering wheel in one direction very, very slow. And then turn it off. Turn it back on and repeat the same thing, but turn the steering wheel the other direction. We want to make sure we get all that excess fluid out of the system. So right now we're getting what's left out of there. Man, you can see all those air bubbles coming out of it. That's basically the reservoir going empty. And I'm very, very, very slowly turning the wheel. If I turn it too fast, it will shoot out of the jug and make a mess. So I'm going very, very slow. Turn the vehicle off. And obviously we're going to come back out, empty the jug, top off the fluid, and then go ahead and repeat the exact same thing and turn the steering wheel the other direction. Again, do this very slowly. And I think that's enough. So let's go ahead and take that hose out of the bottle. And there we go. And let me show you what I do with the old fluid. So I take this jug and I empty it out in my used motor oil container. And just an FYI, there is motor oil in here, so you can mix automatic transmission fluid, power steering fluid, and motor oil together, and I'll show you why towards the end of this video. Alright, so now we're past the halfway point. Now we can start putting everything back together. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a cup right under that cap hose, basically that excess 8-inch hose that we had, just to get the excess fluid out of it. There's a little bit stagnant in there right now. So I'll try to empty that in the cup, just to keep the mess to a minimum. Alright. Come on. We'll set that down. And now we can go ahead and remove that hose that's acting as a cap on a reservoir. And I'm taking a pair of pliers and just kind of wiggling it left or right and turning it as I'm pulling downward. And yep, that felt pretty good. And we'll do the same thing on our extension hose that we put on return line. All we gotta do is give it a little twist and pull. And come on. And I do apologize about me being in the way. It's really tight camera view in here. And we got that barbed connector off as well. Now let's go ahead and reconnect our return hose. And all you gotta do is press it right on the reservoir and lift that hose clamp right back up using your needle nose pliers. And it looks like we got it in the exact same spot, so that looks pretty good. And of course, we'll go ahead and reseat our reservoir. And it goes in the same way it came out, just push downward. That looks pretty good. Hoses look nice. And of course, we got to top off our reservoir since it is empty. Same fluid. And so far when performing this flush, it looks like we're about at 2 quarts. We didn't use much in the system. It doesn't need much. And of course, we'll clean everything up, put our cap back on. And if you're curious where we're refilling it to, there's a max line right at the cold area. That's where we're refilling it to. So we're pretty much going to keep that same song, different verse. And of course, we jumped in the vehicle again, turned it on, and we went ahead and turned the steering wheel all the way left. And we're going to go all the way right. We're going to do this several times. And you'll notice right away that reservoir went empty really quick. Basically, all those hoses and all those lines we cleared out, it basically has a lot of air in the system. So that's where all the fluid is going. So we're going to do this several times just to make sure we get all the air bubbles out. Alright, so that looks like we did enough. Let's turn it off. Again, top off the reservoir again. You want to make sure that level is always consistent right at that max line. And again, put the cap back on, and we're going to repeat this several times. We did this about 2 to 3 more times just to make sure there's no more air in the system. And of course, keep topping off. And I'll show you how it looks, by the way, because in case you're curious, bringing our camera in, you see how it's kind of really foamy or really aerated? That's normal because it's got a lot of air bubbles we're getting out. But after doing it a couple times, we're good to go. So let's lower our vehicle very gently. And then we'll go ahead and remove our wheel chocks. There's one. And there's two. And then we'll jump right back in the truck and go ahead and disengage our parking brake. And of course, we went out for a test drive and everything went really well. It felt really good. Now, for those of you at home that may have a few power steering issues, like you notice it starts coming and going like it's easy to turn than hard, it's a good chance there's air in the line and you just need to keep topping off that reservoir. That's very normal. And as far as disposing our old fluid, you can go to your local auto parts store like an Advance or an AutoZone, and right in the back, they have a container. And right on that container it says transmission fluid, power steering fluid, and motor oil. So I was able to dump that whole container inside their waste bin they have in the back. And this is completely free. All you gotta do is bring your jug, dump it, sign the sheet, and that's all you have to do. And after driving for a few days, we always want to check our level. And looking at it, and hold on, there's a glare. Let me step in front of it. Yep, level looks pretty good. I think we're in great shape. Well, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe.